What's happening? Happy hump day to you and yours. Thanks for joining me. As always, I appreciate you. We are at the quarter pole of the 2024 season. What do we know? What needs to change? We'll have all of that coming up, but I want to start off with some news because there's a lot of stuff flying around, and we'll start with Davante Adams. Davante Adams has asked out of Vegas. He, quote-unquote, prefers to be traded. And, of course, every time a wide receiver one becomes available, people wonder if the Patriots are going to get involved. Should they get involved? It's not going to happen. Now, will a phone call take place? Probably. Due diligence. What's going on? What do you want for Adams? Does it make sense for Davante? Do you talk to his camp? A phone call is likely going to happen if it hasn't already happened. But I don't think Davante Adams is going to be a Patriot. I would not put any money on that whatsoever. The Patriots are 1-3. Adams wants to win. He's tired of losing in Vegas. I don't think he has any interest flying across the country, playing across the country for a team that had 4 wins last year, has 1 win this year, and has looked the way that it's looked the last 2 weeks. He's also going to turn 32 years old in December, and I don't think the Patriots are in the market for many players, if any players, that are 30 years old or older. I think that's one of the major reasons why Matthew Judon is no longer a Patriot. They're trying to rebuild this thing. They're trying to get younger. Adams does not fit that. This is a young, impressionable team, and they already have some issues at wide receiver, some things that have been going on, some complaining, some quote-unquote acting up, and I will get to my guy, his super chat, JB Brown. I will get to you, JB, in a little bit. But they have a young, impressionable team. And Adams, throughout the last few years, he's grown more and more frustrated with his situation. And he's not a guy that's going to sit back on his hands and not show that frustration or have beef with the team or have beef with the quarterback. That's not really how he rolls. I don't think his temperament is what you need here in New England. And if it is going to take a second-round pick, that's a top of the second-round pick right now, right? I mean, the Patriots look like one of the worst teams in football. Certainly looks like you're going to have a top 5 pick as of right now at the top of every round. And do you really want to give up a top of the second-round pick for a 32-year-old wide receiver? You're going to have to redo his deal. I don't see the fit, but don't fear, because there are going to be, I believe, opportunities to address the wide receiver position. When you look at the free agents for 2025, Stephon Diggs is going to be a free agent. T. Higgins is set to be a free agent. Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Hopkins. Now, yes, Hopkins, he's getting older. Cooper is older. I get it. Godwin is getting older. But there are going to be options, short-term, long-term, and the Patriots are going to have money. And, you go back a year and a half ago, I would have sat here and told you that it's very unlikely for a lot of wide receivers to be dealt because wide receiver is starting to become more and more popular throughout the league. But honestly, you look around, there have been some wide receiver trades. Maybe DK Metcalf wants to get paid and Seattle doesn't want to give him the money because they've got JSN and Tyler Lockett. So maybe Metcalf springs free. So there could be, and most likely will be, plenty of opportunity next offseason. And I know people will say next offseason, Nick, we thought we were going to get the guy this offseason. I would say, let's not forget, they went after Calvin Ridley. They went hard after Brendan Ayuk. And much like Davante Adams, those guys looking at the New England situation said thanks, but no thanks. Now you hope that you build something here before the season ends, and that will allow you to go out and get somebody. But I don't think Davante Adams is much of an option. All right, let's switch to David Andrews. This is a big update for the Patriots today, and it's not a good update. Andrews is getting surgery. He is likely done for the season with that shoulder injury. The surgery is the right call. Mark Daniels, many others have reported that if Andrews played through the injury this year, he would end up getting surgery during the offseason, and that would cost him 2025. And really, what do you stand to gain by having Andrews out there, not nearly 100%, for a team that's not going to win many more than 4 or 5 games this year, most likely? So really, what's the point? Get the surgery, get into rehab, start working towards 2025. You only have so many snaps left in that body. Don't push it this year. especially if you're not going to be anywhere near the same guy. And this is going to be an impact on this football team, and a big impact. In this offense with Alex Van Pelt, the center has a lot of responsibility when it comes to the pass protection calls, not like the older offense. So Andrews had a major role within this offense, calling out the pass protection. And now you have to adjust that. It's supposed to be Nick Leverett. Now, Nick Leverett, the good news is that he played well against San Francisco. Leverett played well when he replaced Andrews on Sunday. He was one of the only guys on that offense that played well, and he was one of the only offensive linemen. Owenu was okay. Leverett was good. Leverett did not give up a single pressure against the Niners on Sunday. Here's the issue, though. At today's practice, both Nick Leverett and Layden Robinson were hobbled. Obviously not good. So once again, you can't get healthy up front. You've lost Andrews for the rest of this season. Andrews' backup is banged up. Is he going to play? We don't know. Layden Robinson has started at right guard all year long. Now he's banged up. I mean, the amount of injuries, it's comical at this point what this offensive line has gone through. And I am here to tell you, I've kind of evolved when it comes to Drake May. I want to clarify in the simplest way when I would play Drake May. I'm not playing Drake May anytime soon unless this offensive line and Alex Van Pelt, who needs to help this offensive line, until this offensive line proves that it's capable of not giving up more than 40% pressure rate in a football game. Giving up 50%, 55%, 56%, it's ridiculous. And now you're going through more injuries. So I need to see this offensive line. It doesn't have to be great. It just can't be a 5-alarm fire. So 40%, if this offensive line, if this offensive coordinator can prove to me that you can keep the pressure at or below 40% in a game that matters, I start to think about it. The other way that I would put May in sooner rather than later, and I know many of you disagree, you want May in there right now, but the other part of this is Jacoby Brissett. He was not good on Sunday. He got in the way of the team for really the first time all year against the Niners. He wasn't good. If this team quits on Brissett, then you have to seriously contemplate playing Drake May. If the team quits on Brissett, I would play May. I wouldn't want to play May, but the Patriots have now put themselves in a position where they don't really have another option, which is why I said, going back to before the season beginning and kicking off, I said the Patriots should sign another veteran quarterback and put Joe Milton on the practice squad. They didn't do that. And apparently they don't plan on doing that. So they are left with two options that are legitimate options, Brissett or May. Joe Milton ain't playing a football game this year unless both Brissett and May get hurt. Because you failed to sign a veteran quarterback and to put that guy on the team and put Milton on the practice squad, because you decided to do that, now you don't have that veteran insurance for a Brissett injury. So if we see 55% pressure rate on Sunday and Brissett has to leave the game, you're stuck with May. And it's not like you can now go out there week 5 and sign a veteran quarterback, throw him into the system and hope for the best. So the Patriots, I think they have mishandled the quarterback position when it comes to roster management. Milton should be on the practice squad. You should have 2 veteran quarterbacks along with Drake May. They haven't done that, and I think it's a mistake. So we'll see what happens. But if this team quits on Brissett, you've got to move on from Brissett because the team will quit on you. You can't keep a team out there when they don't believe in the starting quarterback and they believe that somebody else is better sitting on the sidelines. You have to go to that quarterback at that point. The question is, will they quit on Brissett? Can Brissett keep this thing together? The other question is, can the offensive line prove to be capable enough at some point to not have more than 40% pressure rate on the quarterback? Some other news. Karen Guregian of Mass Live reporting that Kyle Duggar dodged a bullet when it comes to a major injury. So Duggar obviously hurt. Sounds like he's going to miss at least a couple of weeks. but it was not a major injury. It's not going to cost him the rest of the year. So good news, bad news, right? He's injured. He's going to miss time. The good news, it's not serious enough to cost him the rest of the season. So Duggar's going to be out. Meanwhile, the Patriots did have some guys return to practice today. This is good news. Marte Mapu, back at practice today. Kendrick Bourne, back at practice today. Sion Takitaki, back at practice today. Now, Gerard Mayo was non-committal when asked if those guys are going to play on Sunday. But if you could get those guys back on the field, you have Mapu to play safety, right? So you help your safety depth with Duggar out. That obviously is needed. Taki is an off-the-ball linebacker. He's good in coverage. So instead of forcing Jelani Tavai to drop into coverage, which they shouldn't be doing in the first place, but if you need an off-the-ball linebacker to be better in coverage, Taki is that guy. So you need Taki back. That was going to be his role. And obviously, Kendrick Bourne can help this team from a spirit standpoint, from an on-the-field contribution standpoint. So Taki, Bourne, Mapu, all three of them back at practice. Hopefully they stay healthy, and hopefully they can chip in. All right, I'm going to get to my report card for the coaching staff in just a minute. But first, I want to roll through some of these super chats. JB Brown. Mayo has to rein the culture stuff in before it spirals. Bedard and others reported that Polk and Douglas have acted up. Who exactly do these guys think they are to act out that way? Bad look. Acting up, frustrated, it's semantics. I don't know how you want to describe it. You say acting up. I say frustrated. That was Pop Douglas. Pop Douglas was visibly frustrated that Brissett did not hit him when he was open. And Pop Douglas has been open a lot through the first 4 games. And for whatever reason, Brissett doesn't seem comfortable throwing to him. Evan Lazar and others have talked about this. It might be because he doesn't trust Pop's size. But Pop's getting open, and the quarterback's not getting him the football. So he's getting frustrated. I will tell you, JB, that today with the media, Pop did apologize for his body language. So at least that's a step in the right direction. Meanwhile, Polk was more a lack of hustle issue. He was on the other side of the field when the Fred Warner interception happened and Warner returned it for the pick 6. Polk did not run after Warner. He just walked off the field. Now, that might bother some people more than others. You could say he was 50 yards away from Fred Warner. Others would say, no, you got to run no matter what. But that was the Jalen Polk situation. Mayo, tightening things up. I will get to that because I agree with you, and I'll dive in more on that in just a little bit. Charlie jumps in. $10 super chat. And by the way, thanks for the $10 super chat, JB. Why would Adams go from one dumpster fire to the next? Exactly. Some people might say dumpster fire is harsh, but if you're Davante Adams, that's how you're looking at this. Do I really want to go to from Vegas to New England? Do I want to go from a team that is not winning and I'm frustrated that the quarterback play hasn't been good, the play calling hasn't been very good, defensive head coach, does it sound familiar? Do you want to go from Vegas to New England after seeing what has happened through the first month of this season? Now, if the Patriots got off to a 2-2 start, if they beat Seattle, if they were competitive the last 2 weeks, then maybe you would have an outside shot. Maybe. But the way the last 2 weeks have gone, Adams is not going to be interested. Thank you, Charlie, for the super chat. Vitalix with a $20 super chat. One thing I'm excited to see is when Barmore comes back. Him and White, sign me up. Do you think those two are enough to get pressure? 0 blitz. Please, God, no Adams with Bills or Jets. Have a good show, Nick. Watch out for the Jets. Diana Rossini saying that they're pretty much the leader in the clubhouse. Makes all the sense in the world. They are desperate to win. Aaron Rodgers, the Adams-Rodgers connection. It just makes sense if that does happen. The Bills, another team that need a wide receiver. That would make some sense. The New Orleans Saints. You know, I saw that Adams, his top 2 on his list are the Jets and the Saints. Doesn't take a rocket scientist. Rodgers with the Jets and Derek Carr, his college teammate. He went out to Vegas in part to play with Carr. And then the Raiders said, see you later, Derek Carr, which I think really began the frustration from Adams very quickly with his tenure out there in Vegas. So it makes sense. Saints and the Jets make a lot of sense. Other people have brought up Washington. Washington would make some sense. Jaden Daniels, they're playing better than a lot of people expected them to play. The offense looks good. If you could pair Adams with McLaurin, Washington gets very dangerous. The NFC East looks susceptible. The Giants are not good. The Cowboys are not playing well. Nick Sirianni did not have his team ready to play this past weekend. So you look at the rest of the NFC East, and Washington might look at it and say, you know what? This rebuild, we're way ahead where we thought we were. The offensive line's playing better. Our rookie quarterback has been outstanding the last couple of weeks. We've got some good momentum. Other teams in this division, they're falling apart. So the Commanders are a team that makes some sense for Davante Adams. Thank you, Vitalix, for the 20. It is very much appreciated. All right, let's get back to the task at hand. Do me a favor. First time I'm asking today. Takes a second of your time, doesn't cost you any money. Just click that thumbs up on the YouTube channel while you're watching this podcast, watching this episode. You click the thumbs up. It helps us with the algorithm. And also you can comment. Are you with me? Do you disagree? Do you think the Patriots should go hard after Davante Adams? Or you're more like me saying it's not a great fit. The price is probably too much. Just wait until next offseason. I know we're all impatient. We want to see this offense be better. We want to see a legitimate number one wide receiver, but give it some time. So don't forget to like and comment. And if you love what we do, subscribe to the channel as well. Trying to get to 4,500 subscribers. We're almost at 4,300. So let's continue to push that. I appreciate every single one of you taking your time, watching this, listening to this, and liking, commenting, and subscribing. All right, let's get to the report card. And I want to start off with the coaching staff. And some people might think that I'm way too nice of a teacher here, and my grades are a little too high, a little too optimistic. But please, let me explain. I will go through my thoughts and why I have graded, who I have graded, what I have graded them. The coaching staff. I give the coaching staff a C-. Now, before I get into the grade itself, it's early. This is a young staff. They have a learning curve. And I think we all understand that this was going to take some time. And they should improve throughout the year. Now, if they don't improve, we have big issues. Because the coaching has to be better, even with the injuries. The injury situation is tough, but you have to be better. And there are ways you can be better, which I will go into. So I'm giving the coaching staff as a whole a C-. I give them positive points for Cincinnati, right? Nobody had any beef with Cincinnati. That helps the grade. I thought Seattle, for the most part, was good. So the first 2 weeks of the season, not bad. I think if you left the first 2 weeks of the season, you'd probably give this coaching staff around a B, right? Well, it drops from a B or so down to a C- because the Jets game was an atrocity and San Francisco wasn't much better. I also give the coaching staff a C- because we have to include Jeremy Springer. And it might sound outrageous, but one of the three phases of football is special teams. And the Patriots' special teams have been very good. So I'm giving Springer an A. Shout out to him. He's been terrific. Bryce Behringer is the 5th best punter in football. Marcus Jones is the 8th best punt returner in football. They have created a couple of turnovers. They have allowed Joe Cardona to be more aggressive, get downfield. So they've created a couple of turnovers. And their coverage has been good. Their punt coverage, their kickoff coverage has been good. So shout out to Jeremy Springer. That's the good. That's the good. Overall, they have not been nearly good enough. And the last 2 weeks have been borderline dreadful. If you said dreadful, I would have a tough time disagreeing with you. The overall issue to me with this team from this coaching staff is that they lack aggression. My hope was Bill Belichick, who was pretty damn conservative since 2012. If you look at the analytics and the statistics, I've talked about this a bunch. Belichick was very conservative post 2012, even with Brady. My hope was that this coaching staff would be more aggressive. Special teams, they've been more aggressive in certain areas. But I thought this team would be much more aggressive and should be much more aggressive, especially offensively, and especially their head coach. And I don't think this coaching staff has been aggressive enough. You go back to Mayo's decision on 4th down to start that game off against San Francisco. We talked about it on Monday. I thought that was a hideous decision. Double-digit underdog, set the tone for your football team. You're on the plus 41. It's 4th and 3. Go for it. Don't punt. Lack of aggression. The team also went into a shell offensively in the second half. What do I mean by that? Well, Andrew Callahan, our friend at the Boston Herald, he posted that by the end, Van Pelt seemed to punt on the idea of a comeback. Alex Van Pelt called runs on more than 50% of the Patriots' first down plays in the second half. So it was run the football, run the football, run the football on first down in the second half when you're down by multiple possessions. What are we trying to accomplish here? I'm not saying go downfield on first down, but what are you trying to accomplish when you're down by a couple of touchdowns, if not more, and you're running the football the majority of the time on first down? You've got to mix it up. You've got to be a little bit more aggressive. And I thought that, this really was also the case against Cincinnati in week 1 when Van Pelt called a bunch of runs in the second half. Don't go into your shell. Be aggressive. I'm not saying be aggressive 100% of the time, but pick your spots and be more aggressive than you've been. The defense, DeMarcus Covington, they are relying a lot on playing zone. I would say too much zone from this defense. Evan Lazar wrote about it. He wrote they've played cover 2 on 25.3% of opponents' pass plays. That is a next-gen stats era high for a Patriots defense. So since 2018, they're playing the most cover 2 against opponent pass plays that we've seen them play in 6 years. They're playing soft. They're playing soft. They're playing too much zone. Lazar wrote they're also playing less man coverage on third down. So when they've got third down, they don't play man. They stick with zone. Again, lack of aggressiveness. And the Patriots are allowing a conversion rate of 51.9% on third down, which is brutal. So you're not playing a lot of man on third down. Teams are converting third downs, but you continue to not play a lot of man on third down. The Pats are playing 2 high safeties 39% of the time on third down. That is also a next-gen era high for New England. So they're playing the most cover 2 we've seen. They're playing the most 2 high safety on third down that we've seen in the past 6 years. And Evan writes that, when you play split safety coverage, you need to get home with a 4-man rush. And we know that this Patriots defense has not been able to get home with their 4-man pass rush. We've been talking about it since the freaking preseason. So you're not getting home with a 4-man rush, but you're still playing 2 high safety on third down. That's why you're getting roasted on third down. You're not being aggressive. You're not being aggressive up front by sending extra guys or trying a 5-man pass rush consistently on third down. And you're not being aggressive enough on the back end because you're not playing man coverage. You're playing soft in the back and you're playing soft up front. What's that mean? You're playing soft. You're not being aggressive enough. And what's even more maddening, against San Francisco on Sunday, according to Callahan, when the secondary went man-to-man, Brock Purdy was 2 for 9, 22 yards passing. So you're playing too much zone. When you get to third down, you're playing 2 high safety and trusting a 4-man pass rush that hasn't been good enough. And you don't go to man, even though as you're watching the game play out, Brock Purdy is not nearly as effective against man coverage. None of it makes sense. You're splitting the baby, so to speak. You're playing zone coverage without a rush. Well, if you're going to play zone coverage, eventually you got to get some rush going. It'll drive you crazy. Let's get to Mayo, because that's the overall staff, okay? Let's get to Mayo. Mayo has not been very good. Point blank. Simple. Mayo hasn't been good enough. He hasn't been good enough when using his timeouts, clock management. We saw it against Seattle before halftime when they completely butchered that situation. We saw it this past weekend against the 49ers when Brock Purdy fumbled the exchange. The Patriots could have used a timeout, got the football back with more time. They let San Francisco run the clock out. You eventually get the punt. And then, yes, you get 3 points at the end of the half because Joey Sly is that kind of guy. But you didn't call the timeout, so you didn't have enough time to try to get a touchdown. Mismanagement, clock mismanagement. Gerard Mayo said before the season that he's going to make mistakes, but he will not be a repeat offender, that he is not a repeat offender. Well, he has been a repeat offender. Multiple times making the same mistake. He's got to clean it up. And he's also not drawing the line, right? He's not showing his team that there are consequences for certain actions. Ramondre Stevenson fumbles again on Sunday. He should have been benched. And I know he's one of the best players you have on offense, but you can't let the guy keep fumbling the football. You have to draw the line. I don't need Gerard Mayo to be Bill Belichick Jr. I don't need him to have a hair across the tuk-tuk like Belichick and bench somebody like Pop Douglas in his rookie season when he fumbles one time because Bradley Chubb makes a ridiculous play from behind and punches the ball out. I don't need Mayo to be as hard of a hard ass as that. But I also don't want the head coach to just allow Ramondre Stevenson to fumble the football over and over and over again and not show that there are consequences for those actions. Stevenson should have been benched on Sunday. And I said on Monday, I would bench Stevenson for the first half of this weekend's game. You failed to send the message last weekend like you should have. Bench him at least for the first half on Sunday against Miami so you can send some kind of message. Consequences. JB brought up earlier on the super chat, right? The wide receivers. Are there going to be consequences if guys keep showing up the quarterback on the field? There has to be. Devon Godshaw, Jabril Peppers, saying that some of their teammates have been selfish. You got to try to keep that stuff in-house. Again, it's not black or white. I don't need Mayo to be Belichick. I don't want him to be Belichick. But this stuff has to get reined in. You don't have to be tight, but you can certainly keep it more in-house. And you can get this back on the rails because there seems to be a lack of discipline right now and a lack of consequences for the mistakes that people make. Mayo's got to be better. And so does DeMarcus Covington. Yes, I know there's been injuries. Yes, I know they traded Matthew Judon. But this defense is not good. Just not good enough. Lazar, 8th last season, he writes. The Patriots are 25th in expected points added after being 8th last year. They're 24th against the pass in EPA. They are 31st. They are the second worst defense in the league on third down. They're 27th in yards per play allowed. They have forced just 2 turnovers in 4 games, and they're 23rd in team pressure rate. They are not doing anything right. And again, it's not black or white. I understand the injuries. I understand that Matthew Judon got traded. I understand Christian Barmore has blood clots. I get it. But that doesn't mean you have to be towards the bottom of the league in a bunch of statistical categories. You have to be better than that. You still have some talent on this team. You've got 3 good cornerbacks. Yes, 2 of them are small, but you've got 3 good corners. Jabril Peppers is a good football player. Keon White, Godshaw, they're good football players. You should not be 31st, 27th, 24th in all of these categories. Defensive DVOA. In 2023, the Patriots were 9th. This year so far, they're 27th. They have to get better. And some things that Covington has done leave me scratching my head. What is the Christian Gonzalez plan? Because early, you had Gonzalez shadowing some of the best receivers. On Sunday, you decided to not have Gonzalez shut one guy down. Me, if you're asking me, Christian Gonzalez should be put on one receiver, shadow that receiver, and shut that receiver down. So you don't have to worry about that guy. If you have multiple receivers that are really good, then you have Gonzalez shut down or at least try to limit one of those guys, and then you roll coverage to the other guy. Gonzalez needs to be utilized as the weapon that he is. Stop playing so much damn zone. Play more man coverage with one of your best players. Gonzalez has been really good this year. Trust that guy. Lean on that guy. He's been capable. If he starts to crap his pants, then change the idea and change the approach. But be more aggressive and trust your cornerbacks who are good. Not every team will roll out, 6'2", 6'3" receivers like the Jets had in spades. And it was tough to play man at times in that game because Rodgers would just throw it to the wide receiver and they would manhandle the smaller corner. But you've got to get away from playing so much zone. You've got to trust one of your best players on that side of the ball in Christian Gonzalez and let him do what he does best, which is stick on coverage. The pass rush discipline, we've talked about it, not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's got to stop happening. You can't have Keon White blow containment on 3 plays in the first drive of Sunday's game, allowing Brock Purdy to pick up yardage. That's a coaching problem. Joshua Uche had 40 snaps on Sunday. He didn't have a single pressure. Meanwhile, on one of the Jordan Mason runs, I believe it was a touchdown, Uche is like down the field, nowhere near the play. He's running down the field like his ass is on fire while Mason runs right by him. And then you have Jalen Hawkins take a bad angle. Ends up being a touchdown. Pass rush discipline, that's on Covington. Another issue with Covington, he's reactive instead of proactive. Andrew Callahan wrote about Shanahan versus Covington on Sunday. Shanahan baited the Patriots into keeping their beefy base personnel on the field more than 60% of the time and lulled them into a false sense of security by calling runs that gained few yards and felt like landed body blows for the D. And when the 49ers passed against this slow-footed group, they landed knockout punches. They baited Covington, they baited the defense, and they kept baiting them. And they said, okay, yeah, you stopped us running the football for 3 yards, but now we're going to crush you over the top. They sucked Covington in. Blown assignments is a problem. My buddy Greg Bedard has written about this. Blown assignments in the secondary. Missed tackling all of a sudden has become more of an issue, especially in the Jets game. Now, that was a shorter week, but they still had some issues on Sunday against the Niners with that stuff. That's Covington. I'm going to get to Alex Van Pelt in a second, but do me a favor. Like the podcast as you watch it. Help us beat that algorithm. Throw a comment in, whether you're watching live or on demand. You can always throw a comment in. That also helps the traffic. And subscribe to the channel. All right, let's get to Alex Van Pelt, because I think many of you want me to get to Alex Van Pelt. You can't wait to get to Alex Van Pelt. Alex Van Pelt has not been good. He has not been nearly good enough. He has been predictable as a play caller. Let's give you some examples, or at least one really good example. Van Pelt's predictability. Andrew Callahan writes, when the Patriots are within one possession, so when the Patriots are within one possession, 81% of the time they run the football when Jacoby Brissett is under center, okay? So you got that one possession game. You see Jacoby Brissett under center. You know as a defense that more than 80% of the time they're going to run the football. Predictable. Even worse, when it's a one possession game and Jacoby Brissett is in the shotgun, 73% of the time Jacoby Brissett throws a pass. If you are a defensive coordinator You can gamble on that stuff. This was heading into the San Francisco game, by the way. If you're San Francisco and you're heading into that game and you say to yourself, all right, when it's a one-possession game, if Jacoby's under center, they run the ball more than 80% of the time, what are you going to do? Your defensive players, they see Jacoby Brissett under center, one-possession game, they're going to go after Brissett because they're going to be saying to themselves, they're going to run the football, and they're going to attack your line of scrimmage. Predictability. Same thing. If it's a one-possession game and you're in the shotgun going into that San Francisco game on Sunday, the defense knows that there's a better than 70% shot that Jacoby Brissett is going to throw the football on that particular down. Predictability. They're not running play action off of inside zone and duo looks enough, which has been their most successful running plays. They're not helping the left tackle enough. We went through this on Monday. It was upwards of, 14 times when Nick Bosa was allowed to rush against your fourth-string left tackle one-on-one. That is absurd. It's terrible coaching, and it's inexcusable. Anybody who's watched enough football, they know you can't allow your fourth-string guy to go one-on-one against Nick Bosa, or your fourth-string guy is going to get his ass whooped. Which, guess what? It's precisely what happened. Inexcusable. You know left tackle's an issue. Help your left tackle. Pretty much every single snap, help your left tackle. Because guess what? You can run 2 or 3 successful plays with the help of the left tackle, and then you decide not to help the left tackle, and Bosa blows it up. Help the guy on that side. This is easy stuff. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Van Pelt is not scheming guys open at times. Callahan writes, as the old wisdom goes, coaches get receivers open versus zone. Receivers get themselves open against man-to-man. The Patriots faced zone 79% of their passing plays against the Niners. 79% of the Patriots' pass plays on Sunday against San Francisco was against zone coverage. The Patriots averaged 3.5 yards per drop back, which is clearly an indictment on Alex Van Pelt. Clearly an indictment. They talked about being a screen team. They're not throwing any screens. And when they throw screens, they're predictable. They get blown up. The 1 or 2 screens they call every once in a grand while. They might call a screen every 3 quarters. This team was supposed to depend on the screen game, to tight ends, to running backs, to wide receivers. And I know, Ryan Shaw, I understand the line is cooked. The injuries are crazy. Talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, but you can still be better. A 50+% pressure rate is obnoxious. And you can coach certain things. As I just mentioned, your pressure rate could be better if you don't leave your fourth-string left tackle on an island against one of the best pass rushers in football. There are things that you can do. It doesn't have to be this bad. It took him 3 weeks to start throwing the football quickly with Brissett. Van Pelt was calling, long developing play action passes from under center, turning Jacoby Brissett's back to the offensive line when his offensive line was giving up a bunch of pressures. Finally, by week 4, he changed some of that. Why does it take 3 weeks? Why do you not adjust and realize Bosa's going to roast Jacobs? Here's another thing. Personnel groupings. Back to Andrew Callahan. A lot of Callahan notes here, who does great work, watches the film. The Patriots' most common offensive personnel grouping is 11 personnel. 3 receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. The most common offensive personnel grouping that they use is also their least efficient. So 11 personnel has not worked well, but yet they use it the most. success rates in 11 personnel from weeks 1 to 4. Against the Bengals, 46% success rate. Against the Seahawks, 31.5%. Against the Jets, 34%. Against the Niners, 25.7%. You're running 11 personnel, and it's not working, but you keep running 11 personnel. Now, part of the problem is because you're trying to get Pop Douglas on the field, and you don't trust Pop Douglas in 12 personnel because you're rolling big with the 2 tight ends, and Pop Douglas is not somebody who's going to block down field a ton because he's not a big dude. But if you're going to play 11 personnel more often, you got to get more success out of it. Here's one more thing about Alex Van Pelt because I got to get to Elliot Wolf. Here's one more thing about Alex Van Pelt. And by the way, Angel, as far as a wide receiver, yes, as a bona fide number 1, but the wide receivers have not been as bad as you think. We'll get to that in a little bit. One last thing about Van Pelt, the lack of window dressing. What do I mean by that? Motion. Motion, 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 motion. It's 2024. If you want to take the heat off of your quarterback, if you want to confuse the defense to open things up a little bit, guess what you do? You run motion. You run motion. Why? Because it gets the defense moving. It forces the defense to tell you if they're zone or if they're man. It opens up opportunities for big plays. The window dressing. Do you know that the Patriots are dead last in motion at the snap? Not before the snap, but at the snap of the football. The Patriots have had motion at the snap of the ball only 8% of the time. That is hideously low. The average in the NFL is like 20%, 22%. The average NFL team is running motion at the snap about 20%, at least 20% of the time. You're running it 8% of the time. The average throughout the league is more than twice the amount of motion at the snap that you're running. The Patriots are 20th in the NFL in pre-snap motion. Lack of creativity from the offensive play caller. All right, I got to get to Elliot Wolf, but first, $20 super chat from my friend Terry here. Thank you. Just support for the podcast. I appreciate that support, as I always do, Terry. Thank you for the 20. McGriffith 3 jumps in, $5 super chat. Red Marte Mapu practicing again. Do you see him getting any real run at linebacker? Group's been bad, especially since Bentley went down. I think Mapu could help at linebacker at times as more of a hybrid, but I think the Patriots are going to play him at safety. I think they want Taki to be their off-the-ball coverage linebacker because he's done it in the NFL and he's done a pretty good job of it. So I think they want Taki in that linebacker kind of, sideline coverage role. And they want Mapu out on the back end. Remember, Gerard Mayo was asked about which group on the team was the deepest or whatever, and he said that it was safety before the season kicked off, and he said, and we don't even have Mapu back. And Mapu was practicing today with the safety. So I think Marte is going to be playing safety. You can always slide him down. I mean, they slide down Duggar, they slide that hybrid kind of role, but I think his main priority is going to be safety. But we'll see. Thank you for the $5, McGriffith. It is much appreciated. Like, comment, subscribe. Help the channel out. All right, let's get to Elliot Wolf. I give Elliot Wolf a C-. A C- for Elliot Wolf, and I will explain. The offensive line. Now, the offensive line is the biggest issue. I did a 52-minute podcast on the offensive line last week, looking at the offseason. If you want me to explain everything about the O-line, you can check out that podcast from last Monday. Again, it's 52 minutes. No commercials, talking about the offensive line. Now, here's the issue. You have to look at what was planned versus the reality. And this is very difficult because part of me and part of you, if not all of you, want to just kill Elliot Wolf about the offensive line. And I understand. There are some things that he could have done differently, and there are things that they could still do differently. about the offensive line. But I also have to give credit to the injuries and the abomination that this has become up front. And this stuff is not predictable. Injuries are not predictable. And if you are predicting injuries, you're going to predict a couple of injuries maybe. We are now literally talking about 6 of the Patriots' top 8 offensive linemen in camp either being hurt, currently hurting, or left the freaking team. 6 of their top 8 offensive linemen at camp. That's ridiculous. And I don't think any team in the NFL could survive 6 of their top 8 guys up front getting hurt. I'm not telling you that the offensive line would be great, bad, good. All I'm telling you is they had settled on an offensive line. They had practiced that offensive line 10 to 11 straight practices. That was going to be their O-line. Lowe, So, Andrews, Owenu, Chooks. Lowe got hurt. So got hurt. Chooks went to left tackle. Then mental health. Decided to leave football. Again, something that's completely unpredictable. There were no reports about Chooks not loving football. There was none of that. Chooks decides he wants to leave football. Now you've got to swing Owenu to right tackle. Oh, and by the way, you can now say that 7 of the top 9 offensive linemen or 7 of the top 8 offensive linemen have been hurt, are hurting, or left the team because today we found out that Leighton Robinson was not practicing. And whether Leighton Robinson has been good or not, and he hasn't been very good, especially in pass protection, lots of ups and downs, mostly downs. Leighton Robinson is now going to possibly miss the game on Sunday. You just lost David Andrews for the year today. So it's difficult for me to sit here and be like, F for Elliot Wolf when it comes to the offensive line, because this stuff is, you can't control this. I also think some of the offensive line problems, as we talked about, they're on Alex Van Pelt. I think some of the offensive line problems are on Jacoby Brissett for holding the football, taking bad sacks, not finding guys quick enough, not having a quick enough release and making decisions quick enough. But, 7 of your top 8 offensive linemen being hurt or leaving the team, that is hemorrhaging. That is a trauma level that I don't know how you handle it. And we can sit there and we can talk about left tackle, and you can have an issue with Darian Lowe. I get it. But as I said from the very beginning, and I've been consistent about this, you can survive in the NFL if 4 of your 5 offensive linemen are serviceable. If you get okay play from 4 of your 5 offensive linemen, you can survive. So if left tackle was going to be a problem, and I even talked about left tackle being a major question before the kickoff to this season. We all questioned left tackle. But if 4 of your 5 are playing okay, you can survive with your left tackle not being good because you can roll help over to him. Now, of course, maybe Alex Van Pelt wouldn't help him. But the idea was get 4 of the 5. And we felt good about So, we felt good about Andrews, and we felt good about Owenu. Owenu's been good. He hasn't been great. He's been good at right tackle. He was terrible against Seattle. He's been better the last 2 weeks. David Andrews was solid as expected. Sidy So got hurt. Now Andrews, he's done for the year. So the 3 of the 4 guys that we felt good about, only one of them has been healthy, and only one of them has been able to play consistent football, which left you the MASH unit. So it's very difficult. Now, they absolutely, to me, they absolutely should sign a veteran left tackle right now. If you can get a veteran left tackle, flip every rock you've got to flip over and bring in another veteran left tackle. Those guys, here's the tough part. Many of them are not healthy. Maybe some of them don't want to play anymore. And it's going to be very difficult to ask any veteran left tackle to get off the couch, join your football team when your team is one of the worst in football. Just like it was rough to get wide receivers to say yes to you in the offseason because the team wasn't going to be very good. If you go to David Bakhtiari right now, I don't know if Bakhtiari is going to be like, yeah, I'll go out there. I'll risk my knees that are like, as Jim Murray would say years ago, Triscuits. I'm going to risk my knees to play for a team that's 1-3 and looks like garbage. So I think, yes, you need another veteran tackle at this point because Wallace is not practicing and Vidarian Lowe is kind of iffy. You can't continue throwing Jacobs out there with like no help behind him. Now, hopefully, Lowe was at practice today. Hopefully, he's able to play on Sunday. The people that talk about the left tackle, I'll just leave it at this before I get to some other things with Wolf. Think about how Wolf approached the three most critical positions this offseason. He drafted a quarterback with the third pick. He went hard after Calvin Ridley, and he tried to trade for Brendan Ayuk and give him more than $80 million guaranteed. Elliot Wolf did everything within his power to address wide receiver and quarterback, right? Left tackle, he did not go out and dump $20 million guaranteed on Tyron Smith, but I think it tells you that Elliot Wolf knew what the weaknesses were for this football team, and he was going to try to address those weaknesses. And he was very aggressive with quarterback and wide receiver. Well, why wasn't he aggressive at left tackle? Again, go check out the 52-minute podcast from last week. The offensive line has not worked, but it's been a mix and matching nightmare. I don't know how you evaluate the O-line when 7 of the top 8 guys have been hurt, or 6 of the top 8 guys have been hurt, and 1 of the guys left due to mental health. AVP, the hiring of AVP. That's on Elliot Wolf. AVP, I just ripped him. It's not working out. Just not working out. Jacoby Brissett is mostly what we expected if you account for the offensive line being in disarray. He's a quarterback that is, ranked somewhere in the 20s out of the 32 starting quarterbacks. He's not great. He is what he is. You could absolutely attack Elliot Wolf for not signing a veteran defensive tackle, especially when Christian Barmore found out he had blood clots. Lawrence Guy was out there. They did not go out and get Lawrence Guy. Now that's an issue because nobody next to Devon Gottschall is stopping the run. You could absolutely go after Elliot Wolf for not getting another defensive edge player. Now, he might have thought Judon was going to hang around, but they still should have went out and got somebody. They did not go out and get a defensive edge, a veteran guy who would have given them some presence. We knew Uche was not a dude who contains the edge. We've seen that before. You could certainly go after Elliot Wolf for not signing another cornerback, a veteran quarterback. I brought up Stephon Gilmore a bunch of times. They decided to ride with Alex Austin, Isaiah Bolden, and Marco Wilson. That has not worked out so far. So you can hit him on that. You could also go after Elliot Wolf for not signing another veteran safety. Justin Simmons was out there. Would Simmons want to play here? I don't know. If you dumped a lot of money, maybe. But you could have signed another veteran safety, but you decided to roll with Del Pettis, an undrafted free agent out of camp, and Pettis has not been good. So all of those are hits on Elliot Wolf. But you do have some good. Antonio Gibson has been a good signing. Bringing back Anthony Jennings was a good signing. Before his injury last week, Jennings was the number 1 edge defender in the NFL against the run. So that's a good signing. They brought in Michael Jordan, who played left guard before he got hurt last week. Shocker. Jordan actually has been pretty damn good on the offensive line. He's been one of the only guys until last week when he missed the game that was giving you consistently decent football up front. That was a good signing. Nick Leverett played very well against San Francisco last week when he replaced David Andrews. So Leverett, that looks like it could be a good signing. Joey Sly, that was a good signing. Cutting Chad Ryland and bringing Sly in was good. The tight ends. The tight end position is better this year than it was last year. Hooper got his first touchdown on Sunday. Hunter Henry had the big game against Seattle. With better quarterback play and some better offensive line play, I think the tight ends would be even more productive. The wide receivers. You are better at wide receiver, and I know people might not believe that, but Evan Lazar wrote this. Receivers were getting open against the Niners. The Patriots hit on some of those quick game concepts and pass catchers. Hunter Henry, Jalen Polk, and Demario Douglas flashed some separation ability with better offensive line play and more from the quarterback. The Patriots receivers look capable of making more plays than they've been able to showcase thus far. The wide receivers are getting open. Not a wide receiver problem. It's a pass protection problem. It's a quarterback problem. It's also, at times, an Alex Van Pelt problem. Fantasy points data, okay? They look at rookie wide receiver separation win rates. The number one rookie wide receiver when it comes to separation win rate is Jalen Polk. 28% of the time. He and A.D. Mitchell, the other guy that I really loved in the draft. Polk and A.D. Mitchell. Those two guys are tied at 28%. So Jalen Polk is getting open. He's getting separation more than any other receiver that is a rookie in football. Jalen Polk's getting open. He's getting open. Pop Douglas is getting open. The tight ends have gotten open more than you would think. Again, offensive line, quarterback issues. But Pop Douglas and Jalen Polk, they're getting open on a weekly basis. That's the good news. So I think Elliot Wolf, so far, looks like he hit on the Jalen Polk draft pick. Now, KJ Osborne could be a miss easily. But again, would it be different? There's quarterback play. Finally, I'll say about Elliot Wolf. Give him a C- right now, but let's not forget, when it comes to the GM or the VP of personnel or whatever, it's about the long term. It's about the big picture. And for this team, it's about the draft. So we're through 1 month of the season so far. We have to see how they improve, right? So what does the draft class look like? It takes time to evaluate that. And of course, the Drake May decision was the most important decision that Elliot Wolf made. And if May works out, he ends up playing this year and he looks good and you get ready for 2025 and he looks like he's a franchise quarterback, I guarantee you not many people will be complaining about Elliot Wolf. All right, let's wrap it up with some individual players, some quick grades. Jacoby Brissett, I'm giving him a C. He is who he is. He's had to deal with a bad offensive line. So I give Jacoby Brissett a C. This past week, he was absolutely a D. But Cincinnati, Seattle, he wasn't that bad. So I'll give Brissett a C. Ramondre Stevenson gets a D. Stop fumbling the football. Mike Onwenu, he gets a C. The last 2 weeks, they've been better. You might even give Onwenu a B-, but I think that's a little too heavy. Maybe a C+. But Onwenu last week, he was good. He went most of the game without any help. And he allowed 3 hurries and only 1 pressure to Nick Bosa on 12 snaps. Evan Lazar said he thought that it was Onwenu's best game of the year last weekend. So Onwenu gets a C. Uche gets a D. 40 snaps against San Francisco, 0 pressures. Not good enough. Christian Gonzalez gets an A. I'll give him an A-. I don't know what else you can expect from him. Keion White gets a B. His pass rush discipline knocks the grade down to a B. But he's the only dude getting consistent pressure and making plays in the backfield. So Keion White gets a B. Jabril Peppers gets an A+ because I love Jabril. Love that dude. And if you saw the play from the game against San Francisco, when it's like in the final 2 minutes and they're losing 30-13, and he's chasing the guy down from behind, from like 20 yards away. Peppers gets an A+. I just want to throw him in there. All right. Let us know your grades for the team. Your grades for Elliot Wolf. People will be mad because I didn't say F across the board. I get it. But the first 2 weeks did exist. So don't forget to throw a comment in. Grade the football team. Grade the coaching staff. Grade Elliot Wolf. Hit that thumbs up when you watch on YouTube. That always helps us. Subscribe as well. And our friends at Spotify, Apple Pods, rate and review. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., NFL podcast, crafts and kickoffs. And then on Friday at 3, I'll have your Dolphins-Patriots preview. Until then, this has been the Nick Cattle Show.